From a young age, Priyanka Chopra understood that life was not meant to be lived within boundaries. Her journey into the public eye began unexpectedly when at the age of 18 she won the title of Miss World in 2000. While many might view beauty pageants as a glamorous detour or temporary fame, for Priyanka, it was a launch pad, the first major step in her journey to break through barriers that society often places on women, particularly those from non-Western countries. Her victory was more than just a crown. It was a bold statement from a young Indian girl to the world. I am here, and I am capable of much more. What makes Priyanka's early success even more striking is that she had not originally planned to enter show business. As a teenager, she had aspirations to study aeronautical engineering, but when the opportunity arose to compete on an international platform, she seized it. That in itself was a bold move. Stepping into an unfamiliar world, being judged not only for her beauty but also her intelligence and confidence on a global stage, took courage that many adults never find. For a young woman from a traditional Indian background, where expectations can be confining, this decision to take a risk was her first major act of self-definition. After her win, Priyanka could have chosen to remain in the spotlight only as a beauty queen or a celebrity figure. But that was not enough for her. She wanted to act, to tell stories, and to become a respected figure in one of the most competitive industries in the world, Indian cinema. However, she was not classically trained in acting and had no godfather in Bollywood, a place known for being dominated by legacies and insider connections. She faced skepticism, typecasting, and the ever-present scrutiny that comes with being a woman in the entertainment industry. Yet, instead of retreating, she leaned in. She learned on the job, took on challenging roles, and constantly pushed herself beyond comfort zones. One of the most notable things about Priyanka during these early years was her refusal to be boxed into a single type of role. She did not allow herself to be stereotyped as just another pretty face. Her performances in films like Aitraz, Fashion, and Barfi showed her range and depth. These were not safe choices. They were bold, risk-laden roles that required her to strip away glamour and dig into characters with emotional complexity. Her role in Fashion, as a struggling model battling addiction and self-worth issues, earned her a National Film Award, one of the highest honors in Indian cinema, and proved that she was not just surviving in Bollywood, she was excelling. Breaking barriers also meant challenging cultural norms. In the early 2000s, Bollywood was still grappling with its representation of women. Most leading actresses were expected to be demure, agreeable, and largely secondary to the male leads. Priyanka, however, began choosing scripts where she was central to the plot, where her character's journey was the core of the film. She helped redefine what a heroine could be in Indian cinema, not just a romantic interest, but a complete person with strength, flaws, and agency. Her choices laid the groundwork for a generation of actresses who could now demand better roles and better treatment. At the same time, she was also navigating the pressures of public opinion and the rigid expectations placed on women in the limelight. From how she dressed to whom she dated, everything about her was up for debate in tabloids and gossip columns. But Priyanka learned early on that she had to develop thick skin and a clear voice of her own. She began speaking out about issues like colorism in the industry, sharing how she was once told to lighten her skin tone to be more marketable. Instead of staying silent, she addressed these issues head-on, encouraging conversations around the damaging standards of beauty that were so deeply entrenched, not just in India, but around the world. The boldness of Priyanka's early years lies not just in her successes, but in her mindset. She refused to see herself as a passive participant in her own career. She chose to be strategic, to learn fast, and to rise above every judgment with grace and resilience. In doing so, she sent a powerful message to young women everywhere. Your beginnings do not define your limits. You can come from a small town, have no connections, face relentless criticism, and still emerge as a force to be reckoned with. Priyanka Chopra didn't wait for the world to make space for her. She made her own space, and in doing so, she opened the door a little wider for every woman who dares to dream bigger than what she's told is possible. Breaking barriers early wasn't just part of her story. It became the foundation for the global powerhouse she is today. And that kind of boldness, that kind of confidence, is what truly sets her apart. Priyanka Chopra's journey from Bollywood star to global icon is not just a tale of international success. It is a masterclass in reinvention. Reinventing oneself, especially on a global stage, requires more than ambition. It takes courage, humility, and the ability to embrace the unknown. When Priyanka made the decision to step beyond the Indian film industry and enter Hollywood, she was not just pursuing fame, she was pushing the boundaries of what was possible for someone like her, a South Asian woman from India, in an industry that had historically excluded such voices from meaningful representation. At the height of her career in Bollywood, Priyanka had already achieved everything many actors dream of. She had starred in major box office hits, won critical acclaim, earned numerous awards, and had a secure place in the Indian entertainment world. But comfort was never her goal. She understood something that many fear to acknowledge. To grow, one must be willing to start over, and so she made the bold decision to move to the United States and explore opportunities in Western media, a world that had barely scratched the surface of diverse storytelling. This decision was not without risk. Entering Hollywood meant that she would have to shed the comfort of her stardom and embrace being a newcomer once again. She had to prove herself in an entirely different cultural context, one where South Asian actors were rarely seen in lead roles, especially not in mainstream television or films. For Priyanka, this wasn't just a career move, it was a reinvention of her professional identity. Her global breakthrough came with the television series Quantico, in which she played the lead role of Alex Parrish, an FBI recruit with a mysterious past. The casting itself was groundbreaking. Priyanka became the first South Asian woman to headline a primetime American network drama, a historic milestone that changed the face of representation in Hollywood. But more than the novelty of it, it was her performance that captivated audiences. She brought complexity, charisma, and emotional depth to the role, proving that talent transcends borders. To play that role convincingly, Priyanka not only had to master the nuances of American television, but also had to adjust to a new style of acting, language, rhythm, and production culture. It meant early mornings, late nights, and an immense amount of preparation. She didn't walk onto those sets with the entitlement of a superstar. She walked in with the work ethic of someone determined to earn her place. That humility, paired with her boldness, is what allowed her to thrive in an environment that was still learning to open its doors to global talent. Priyanka's reinvention wasn't limited to acting. She quickly became a sought-after personality in Western media, gracing the covers of international magazines, appearing on late-night talk shows, and speaking at major global forums. What made her stand out was her ability to seamlessly blend her Indian identity with her global persona. She never tried to erase where she came from. On the contrary, she embraced her heritage, bringing her culture into mainstream conversations. Whether it was talking about Indian weddings, showcasing traditional fashion, or advocating for representation, she showed the world that authenticity could be powerful and marketable at a time when Hollywood still largely favored a narrow view of beauty, culture, and talent. Priyanka's presence was a challenge to the norm. She wasn't willing to settle for token roles or background characters. She fought for parts that had substance, demanded space at the table, and used her growing influence to highlight issues often ignored by the industry. Her career choices began to reflect a larger mission: to pave the way for others like her, who dream of being seen and heard without having to compromise their identity. Outside of television and film, Priyanka expanded her global reach by exploring entrepreneurship and advocacy. She started her own production company, Purple Pebble Pictures, which aims to promote regional Indian cinema and stories that are often overlooked. This initiative wasn't just business, it was a statement. Even as she rose in Hollywood, she remained deeply connected to her roots, using her platform to uplift voices from back home. This duality, of being both deeply Indian and unmistakably global, is what sets her apart. In her memoir Unfinished, Priyanka offers insight into the emotional and professional toll of constantly adapting and reinventing herself. She speaks candidly about moments of doubt, cultural disconnect, and the intense pressure to succeed in a world that often expects women, especially women of color, to play small. Her willingness to be vulnerable about these experiences makes her journey all the more relatable and inspiring. Reinvention, after all, is not a linear process. It is layered with self-doubt, rejection, growth, and eventually, triumph. Today, Priyanka Chopra is recognized not just as a global actress, but as a symbol of what is possible when a woman dares to reimagine her place in the world. Her journey from Indian film sets to American red carpets was never guaranteed. It was earned through fearless decisions, relentless work, and an unwavering belief in her ability to belong in any room she walked into. Reinventing herself globally was not just about entering new markets. It was about expanding the definition of what a global star could look like. Her story reminds us that reinvention is not about leaving behind who you are. It's about evolving into everything you're meant to become and taking the world with you while you do it. Priyanka Chopra is more than a global celebrity. She is a woman who has chosen to use her platform with purpose. In a world where fame often comes with influence, not everyone chooses to wield it with intention. But Priyanka has consistently demonstrated that her voice is not just meant for applause. It is meant to spark change, ignite conversation, and stand for those who are unheard. Her evolution from actress to advocate has been marked by a deep commitment to causes that matter, especially those affecting women, children, and marginalized communities around the world. From an early stage in her career, Priyanka understood the responsibility that came with visibility. But her advocacy work didn't begin once she became famous globally. It began in India. Long before Hollywood came calling, her partnership with UNICEF started in 2006, and over the years she has risen through the ranks to become a UNICEF Global Goodwill Ambassador. This role is not symbolic for her. She has traveled to some of the most vulnerable regions across India and Africa to meet with children in refugee camps, in conflict zones, and in areas plagued by poverty and violence. These trips are not media stunts. They are immersive, often emotionally heavy experiences where she listens to stories of pain, resilience, and hope. And when she returns, she speaks about what she's seen, not to center herself, but to amplify the realities others often ignore. One of the causes closest to Priyanka's heart is the education of girls. She has long been vocal about the importance of giving girls access to quality education, particularly in regions where child marriage, gender discrimination, and poverty prevent them from staying in school. She has used every stage she's been given, whether it's the United Nations General Assembly, global talk shows, or social media, to champion the message that when girls are educated, entire communities are uplifted. Her voice has helped draw attention to the millions of girls who are still denied basic rights, and she continues to work with organizations that focus on creating real, measurable impact in this area. But Priyanka doesn't stop at education. She is unafraid to speak on controversial or difficult topics, even when they might affect her public image. Whether it's colorism, pay inequality, body shaming, or the often unspoken expectations placed on women in the entertainment industry, she has consistently chosen to speak her truth. She has publicly addressed how, early in her career, she was encouraged to lighten her skin tone to fit into a more acceptable image of beauty. Instead of quietly accepting these pressures, she opened up about them, challenging a long-standing problem not just in Indian media but globally. In doing so, she gave courage to others who had similar experiences and brought a long overdue conversation into the mainstream. Her voice is also deeply intersectional. As a South Asian woman in Western media, she understands what it means to be stereotyped, misunderstood, or excluded. Yet she does not let those limitations define her. Instead, she challenges them by creating and supporting narratives that expand the representation of brown women across industries. She produces films and television content that highlight diverse stories, often giving platforms to voices that are rarely heard. By doing so, she is not just advocating with words. She is creating structural change through her work, Social media has become a powerful tool for celebrities, but Priyanka uses it not just to promote her projects, but to raise awareness and funds for humanitarian causes. During the COVID-19 pandemic, she and her husband Nick Jonas actively campaigned for global vaccine equity. She partnered with organizations to provide oxygen and medical supplies to overwhelmed hospitals in India, showing that her concern isn't confined to borders. Her activism is global in scale, just like her influence. What makes her stand out as an advocate is the balance she maintains between celebrity and sincerity. It's easy for public figures to take on causes as branding exercises. But with Priyanka, her long-term involvement, hands-on approach, and continued engagement show that her work is rooted in authenticity. When she speaks at forums about gender equality or child rights, she does so not just with statistics, but with empathy, often referring to individual stories she's heard and the emotions she's carried from the field. Another powerful way Priyanka uses her voice is through her writing. In her memoir Unfinished, she opened up about her life not just as an actress, but as a woman navigating cultural expectations, personal grief, and professional reinvention. By being vulnerable in print, she offered a deeper look into her experiences, struggles, and motivations. It wasn't a sanitized version of her life. It was honest, reflective, and deeply personal. And in doing so, she connected with readers on a level that transcended stardom. Priyanka Chopra's commitment to using her voice for purpose is a defining trait of her legacy. She understands that confidence is not just about achieving personal success, but about lifting others as you rise. She recognizes that with power comes responsibility, and she does not shy away from it. Whether it's in boardrooms, refugee camps, or red carpets, she brings her voice with her and uses it to challenge injustice, celebrate diversity, and demand equity. In a world filled with noise, her voice is clear, bold, and purposeful. She reminds us that fame without purpose is empty, but when confidence is used in service of others, it becomes a force that can truly change the world. Priyanka Chopra's rise to global prominence is not just a story of talent and ambition. It is a powerful example of what it means to own one's identity in a world that often demands assimilation. As a woman of color navigating industries dominated by Eurocentric ideals of beauty, behavior, and success, Priyanka has continually resisted the pressure to conform. Instead, she has chosen to embrace who she is, her culture, her voice, her background, with pride and authenticity. Owning her identity has not only shaped her personal journey, but has also helped redefine representation for millions who see parts of themselves in her. From her earliest days in the public eye, Priyanka has stood out not because she tried to blend in, but because she chose to stand tall in her uniqueness. Born in India and raised between India and the United States, she had an upbringing that was rich in diversity, but also full of cultural challenges. As a teenager in the US, she experienced racism and bullying, with classmates mocking her Indian heritage and accent. These formative experiences could have led her to suppress her cultural roots, to try to fit in by erasing what made her different. Instead, they instilled in her a deeper appreciation for her identity and a determination to never let others define her worth. Her time in India, surrounded by family, tradition, and cultural pride, gave her the foundation she would later rely on as she stepped onto global platforms. Throughout her Bollywood career, she never shied away from playing complex characters rooted in Indian realities. She embraced traditional Indian fashion, spoke her native languages fluently in interviews, and celebrated the richness of her heritage. Even as she gained fame, she maintained a connection to her roots that went far beyond aesthetics. It was a reflection of who she was at the core. When Priyanka transitioned into Hollywood, the stakes were higher. Western entertainment has a long history of pigeonholing South Asian characters into narrow, stereotypical roles, usually comedic sidekicks, heavily accented caricatures, or background characters lacking depth. Priyanka, however, entered the scene determined not to be anyone's token. She made it clear that she would not change her accent to sound more neutral or alter her appearance to fit into Western beauty norms. She insisted on roles that gave her dignity and dimension, and when they weren't available, she helped create them. Her role in Quantico was a breakthrough, not just because she was the first South Asian woman to headline an American primetime drama, but because the character she played was not written with her ethnicity as a defining trait. Alex Parrish could have been played by any woman, but Priyanka made sure that her portrayal brought layers, strength, and depth to the character. She didn't make her identity the focus, but she didn't hide it either. It was simply part of the whole, a revolutionary act in an industry used to putting women like her in boxes. Off-screen, Priyanka has become a global fashion icon known for wearing Indian designers on red carpets, championing traditional embroidery, fabrics, and silhouettes, and mixing them confidently with Western styles. She proudly wears saris and lehengas at international events, not as costume or tribute, but as authentic expressions of herself. She has helped normalize Indian fashion on the global stage, inspiring countless South Asian women to wear their culture proudly, without feeling like they have to explain or justify it. Her marriage to American singer Nick Jonas also became a focal point of public attention, and again, Priyanka used that visibility to celebrate her heritage. Their wedding was a multi-day event that honored both Indian and Western traditions with equal joy. From Hindu rituals to Christian vows, from Mehendi to Sangeet, the celebration became a global spectacle, and through it, she showed the world how two cultures could coexist beautifully. It was more than a wedding, it was a declaration of identity, love, and mutual respect. In interviews, speeches, and her memoir Unfinished, Priyanka speaks openly about the importance of knowing who you are and not apologizing for it. She addresses how hard it can be to live in spaces where you're constantly told to shrink, adjust, or soften parts of yourself to fit in. But she counters that with her own lived truth, that confidence comes from knowing your value and refusing to compromise your essence. She encourages others, especially women and young people of color, to embrace their full selves without guilt or fear. Priyanka's ownership of her identity has also extended into business and advocacy. She founded her production company to tell stories from India and beyond that reflect the diversity of experience often left out of mainstream narratives. She has invested in women-led businesses and startups that align with her values. All of this is part of the same mission, to be unapologetically herself while creating room for others to do the same. By owning her identity in every space she occupies, Priyanka Chopra has become more than just a star. She's a symbol. A symbol of what it looks like when a woman refuses to choose between cultures, when she refuses to dim her light to make others comfortable, and when she turns her difference into her greatest strength. Her story reminds us all that real power doesn't come from fitting in. It comes from standing out, standing strong, and standing proud. Priyanka Chopra's career is not just marked by her achievements in acting and modeling, it is also defined by her determination to build something bigger than herself, an empire. What sets her apart is not just her talent but her vision. She has never been content to stay within the traditional boundaries laid out for women in entertainment. Instead, she has forged her own path, combining creativity with business acumen and heart with hustle. Building her empire has not been about chasing fame. It has been about creating impact, independence, and lasting legacy. At a time when most actors focus solely on landing their next role, Priyanka chose to expand her reach beyond the screen. One of her most powerful moves was founding her own production company, Purple Pebble Pictures. This wasn't a vanity project or a side hobby. It was a strategic decision to shift from just being in front of the camera to being behind it, influencing the kind of stories that get told and who gets to tell them. The company focuses on promoting regional Indian cinema and giving a platform to fresh talent, a clear reflection of Priyanka's belief in inclusivity and storytelling that reflects real diversity. By investing in small language-specific films that many mainstream producers would overlook, she made a strong statement: every story matters, and all voices deserve to be heard. Her entrepreneurial journey didn't stop with film and television. Priyanka has become a savvy investor and businesswoman, aligning herself with brands and startups that reflect her values. She has taken equity stakes in companies ranging from tech to beauty and wellness, showing a keen eye for industries where she can offer more than just her face. She offers ideas, strategy, and cultural relevance. One of her most notable ventures is Anomaly, her hair care brand. Unlike many celebrity-endorsed beauty products that rely solely on star power, Anomaly was built on a promise of clean, sustainable, and affordable hair care. As founder, Priyanka was involved in every stage, from product development to branding, making it clear that she is not just a spokesperson, but an innovator. In the realm of global partnerships, Priyanka has carved out a unique space for herself. She has collaborated with some of the biggest names in fashion and luxury, becoming a brand ambassador and muse for high-profile labels. But again, she does so on her own terms. She doesn't fit the mold of the traditional Western fashion icon. She has redefined it. Her presence at events like the Met Gala or her campaigns with brands like Bulgari and Victoria's Secret speak to her ability to blend glamour with strength, elegance with individuality. She has turned her style into a signature, bold, global, and unapologetically hers, and used it as a tool to expand her influence far beyond entertainment. Another pillar of her empire is storytelling, not just through fiction, but through lived experience. Her memoir, Unfinished, became an international bestseller, offering readers a glimpse into her life, struggles, and evolution. Writing a book is not just about sharing memories, it's about owning your narrative. In doing so, Priyanka reclaimed her story from the headlines and shared it in her own words, another strategic move that adds depth and permanence to her legacy. Even her approach to social impact is integrated into the empire she's building. Priyanka understands that true influence is measured not just by financial success, but by the change you help create. As a UNICEF Global Goodwill Ambassador, she doesn't just lend her name to causes, she gets involved. Whether it's advocating for girls' education, raising funds during humanitarian crises, or using her social media presence to shine a light on inequality, she builds purpose into her brand. Her philanthropic efforts are not side projects, they are central to the empire she's creating, one built not just on power, but on meaning. Importantly, Priyanka's journey as a businesswoman and empire builder is deeply tied to her role as a woman of color operating in global spaces. For far too long, such spaces have been closed off or inaccessible. By stepping into these arenas and succeeding, she is not only claiming space for herself, she is making room for others. She constantly pushes for representation, not just in front of the camera, but in boardrooms, on magazine covers, and at negotiation tables. Her empire is inclusive, dynamic, and forward-looking, qualities that ensure it will outlast trends and fads. Throughout her career, Priyanka has faced skepticism, criticism, and countless moments where the easier choice would have been to stay in a defined role. But she never settled. She refused to be boxed in by industry expectations or cultural limitations. Every move she makes, from producing films in regional dialects to launching beauty products and investing in wellness tech, is deliberate, fearless, and grounded in her understanding of her power. Building her own empire has meant taking risks, working tirelessly, and trusting her instincts. It has required both resilience and reinvention, but above all, it has required belief in her vision, in her identity, and in her right to dream bigger than what the world expected of her. Today, that empire is not just a collection of businesses or projects. It is a symbol of bold ambition, of unwavering confidence, and of what is possible when a woman decides to create her own future instead of waiting for permission.